My name is Manuel, last name is Fick. I'm originally from South Africa. My wife, also a South African, immigrated to the US in 1998. In 2003, I started a company called Pluto, which stands for Placing Labor in Unique Trade Opportunities. And it was an acronym because I was hoping to place different labor, not just H2A, but other fields also. And I developed it after a lady came to America that had a company for about 4 years, 3, 4, 5, and she had to leave the country and go back to South Africa. Her whole business would have fallen flat. So I said, okay, I'll take it over, but it will then become my company and I can work hard. And hopefully, if I work hard, I make a success and so on. The sort of the American dream idea. So we started it under that name. And she brought to the table at that time about 30 clients or so, which was about 75 workers. She stayed my main recruiter in South Africa, and that was our agreement. And I developed it from there, and we're in our 19th year. At some point, I got more and more recruiters in South Africa, and we developed it to the point where we now have about 540 or something clients I saw last week. And we bring approximately 1,600 workers to America. We bring out of South Africa and Ukraine and Moldova as our main sources where we bring those three nationalities from. And then we have 14 other countries who also come through us here, but that's small, 2 here from Paraguay and one from Brazil and so on, but that makes 14 other nationalities. We have an office in North Carolina. We have about 15 full-time people, and we serve our clients. You know, the need has grown just like the industry. It's been a need for all these years. We've personally grown every year a minimum of 20%, with an average of the last 5 years of 27% of growth. It just seems like we keep signing up clients who tell us we still don't know the program even exists. So if you consider that there's 3 million farmers, of which 1 million active farmers in the US, of that 1 million, 12,000 of them are H2A users, which bring in 270,000 workers from Mexico, most of them from there. 1.66% come from South Africa, which is approximately 4,500 workers that come from South Africa. And we supply 1,600. Actually, from South Africa, it's only 1,250. The rest, as I said, is from Ukraine. So our approach to our clients is we're here to serve them, to solve their labor problem. I think we have a bit of a more unique approach. I have 4 people in my office that all they do is manage the relationship between the client and the worker through the country. And on a constant basis. In the winter period, when we do applications, their main focus is what does the farmer need, get the paperwork done. And then in the summertime, it's usually dealing with conflict, challenges, problems, workers that don't work out, farmers who are maybe frustrated and so on. So we need to find a win-win relationship between our clients and our workers and ourselves. And we don't give up on it. We try to mediate. I share often with clients, if they call in new, I tell them, you know, it's a great program, but it's inevitable that for some clients, the relationship is not going to work between their worker and the farmer. And the statistic is 11%. And it stayed 11% for the last 6 years since I've measured it very clearly statistically. But yeah, to try and reduce that number, there's people that just don't like each other. They don't like their smile. They don't like the way the guy answers them. And so one tries to find that match, a good match. And then if people fit in, most people stay. Here's another interesting statistic that farmers care for. 60% of all the workers we bring always return the next year. Many a farmer asks, so can I keep the same guy forever? And will he stay? So the answer is at least most come. Of the 60% that return, 40% always goes back to the same employer. So it's not bad. One would like it to be even higher and to stay, but you know, it is seasonal work for the farmer and for the worker. It's not a permanent employment. So that's an interesting statistic. And we always strive to get it higher. You know, how can we keep these guys to be happy, to enjoy it, to find fulfillment, for the farmer to have productive labor, to accomplish his goals and his dreams, and vice versa. You know, both come. I always say to people, Jessica, that human beings are all the same over the world. They all just want a family, a job, a car, a house, and a vacation every now and then. And that's what all of us basically want, with peace and not too much conflict or no conflict. So farmers have that dream and workers have that dream, and we try and make it work for both.
But COVID certainly exacerbated some of the shortcomings of the H2A program, particularly trying to get folks their visas and get them over here in time to fulfill their contracts. Can you share a little bit about what your clients and what your workers experienced, and then, you know, what you did and your company to try and help facilitate making sure that the farmer had their worker and that the workers who wanted to come over were able to get over here?
Yeah, I fully agree. This COVID, like in many industries, really was a curveball for people, businesses. Many people are suffering. The H2A program is for sure a solution for farmers. As you asked the question, I was thinking, you know, if the program could have been one where it was a year-round thing and they could get away from the seasonality aspect to make it qualify, those workers could have been here, stayed here, and easily have been able to continue working without having to get a new permit and a new justification and a new season again and have them go home and come back. There would always be people who want to go home. I mean, after this whole COVID drama, which I'll share in a minute, we still find that there's workers who say, no, I must go home at the end of the year. And at this very moment, as we're speaking, there's still no commercial flights. There's no chance of commercial flights maybe till in the new year. South Africa, who's the main factor at the moment, is in their COVID incline. They're only going up the hill, and they peaking supposedly only in September to end of September. If that's the case, it'll take the whole of October, November to come down. So maybe there'll be enough reduction in numbers and infections to have airplanes take off in December to get these workers home again. So one of our biggest concerns at this very moment is, what are we going to do when we get to the end of the year? And do we have to start planning charter flights again? On top of the whole charter flight, if we go back to a point you made, is how imperfect the program is. The ideal probably would be is let the people split the cost of a plane ticket. But at the moment, the plane ticket by law has to be paid by the employer and reimbursed. So a normal season, a plane ticket is $1,800. It has gone down to about $1,600, and it stays around there. Here and there, you can get a special for $1,200, and you don't know if the airplane has wheels or not, but you still get to America. So at the 1600, that's a round trip. At the moment, our cheapest flights were 1600 one way, and only from South Africa to Chicago. Now, when you get to Chicago, you need to spend maybe another $500 to fly the person up to Minot in North Dakota or Colorado. So now the flight is $2,000, 2,100 one way, and another 2,100 later in the year when he needs to go home again. So the farmer's cost to get his labor just doubled in transportation cost this year. Then if we talk about the problems, as you say, to have gotten them here, you know, we took note in March the 15th, and I made notes of 7 pages of my summaries of my 30 pages that I typed up to try and grasp this and present to our client base what's happening, what's the challenges we have, what are we doing about these challenges to bring these guys. So in March, when the US government were the first ones to say, okay, we block all travel out of Europe. And that was the first spoke in the wheel. It was understandable and necessary, but that brought a big challenge to us. About 3 weeks later, the South African domino dropped, and the South African government said, okay, now nobody can fly, nobody moves, everybody go home, everybody is on lockdown. And the whole system came to a standstill in South Africa, because then it became a visa issue. Could they get visas? When will they get them? How long will it take it? Then there was the whole debate, if you need to get your visa in person, can you still mail? So somewhere in this process, the USCIS said, okay, you may now do all your applications by mail worldwide, and you don't have to stress about getting physically to the consulate, because we're anyway not going to see you till July. In this whole debate, you know, I mentioned the research we did at one point, because there was unbelievable ups and downs. Then we look like we're going to get the doors open, and then there's another setback where either the South African government can't get their act together, or the US side in terms of logistics had challenges issuing visas, or whatever was the cause. But we did the survey to try and determine what type of effect is this going to have on the industry, with all the numbers I mentioned of how many farmers there might be. So we don't know the precise number of farmers who use South Africans, but we want to guess that out of that 12,000, it's maybe 1,000 to 2,000 that use South Africans. So we asked the whole group, and we what also developed out of this, which was very interesting, and it's a first time. So the only good thing about COVID so far is that the agents got to meet each other. The agents got to work together. At one point in our process, I reached out to the biggest other competitors and said to them, listen, we need to take hands. We need to get all of us together to do 2 things: work in South Africa together, get enough people in aeroplanes. We have to look at charter flights, because those cost about $600,000 a piece to get off the ground. So somebody has to collect 600,000, give it to those guys, and then pray this thing makes it beautifully here and the workers can work. So that's stressful, because I didn't, you know, we're a small company, we don't have the 600,000, so we needed to get everybody together. At the end of the day, it luckily worked out slightly different, but that was the initial goal: is how do we get them here? No commercial flights. Who will fly them? So we looked for charter flights in America. Later, we looked at charter flights that were offered for repatriation from South Africa by the South African government to come pick up people. Then in our process, we connected to the Consul General from the US consulate in South Africa in Cape Town, Mr. Bills, and we spoke to him about, you know, how many people does he need to get repatriated out of South Africa to the US? So maybe if we can group together and put our people in the aeroplane and put his people in, and we can get them here, and then the South African airlines can turn around and put the South Africans on this side in and take them back. So those were all the questions we had. So, you know, when you do these things and you sit, we spend 2.5 months, 8 hours a day, many 5-hour sessions talking about how do we solve this, how do we solve that. So as I said, we got the 4 or 5 biggest groups together, South African agents or agencies that recruit. And then later we were 17 people on this conference call every second day to discuss how. So as I said, the very good thing is we developed relationship. We got to know each other. We discovered that we're all ducks on the same pond in a little way. And working together is very good for us. So that was something. So back to the survey that I mentioned, we asked these farmers in the survey, what's the likelihood of going out of business without your H2A workers? So the 14 respondents out of the 430 said that it's definitely, I'm going to go out of business if I don't have them. 72 said it's very likely, somewhat likely 141. So 141 plus the 72 and the 14 is the number to consider that will really be affected by this, which is more than half of them would be in a dire straits in essence. I mean, it's difficult to determine also for them. You know, they keep hearing the hope that maybe we'll get these people here. How long could it take? What will it take? So those were some thoughts. In terms of the program, the challenges the program has, not being such a perfect program, but being some answer for most of the farmers. Then having COVID totally bring everything to a standstill for 2.5 months for major numbers of people. It for sure had a serious impact this year on these guys, on the farmers.
You know, even with the high unemployment rate throughout the United States because of COVID, those folks still don't want to come to the farm and do that type of work, and they're not trained to
That's right.
truck and drive equipment. So if you want to share maybe about, you know, the South Africans are trained to run a lot of this equipment.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. You know, you heard the 40 million people that's unemployed, and you would have thought, and if there was ever an argument that local people would fill these jobs if they were available, this COVID proved that that's not going to happen. And the only reason is it's a very human reason. Every one of us, or most people, have a job. You have a certain set of skills. You work in that comfort field that you know. Now suddenly to switch and go work in a total different environment that you are not trained in, not skilled in, not used to, is asking too much for most people. It probably didn't help that the government gave good checks for the people, because then they could stay home. The pressure wasn't maybe that much. Some people might have considered it. I'm trying to remember a number, and I have lots of numbers in my head, but if there were 2 or 3 people in a state that we heard that said, I had local people come and apply, it was many. We were blown away. The State Workforce Agency of Montana approached us and asked and sent out an email to get a feeling for how many local people are applying and what's happening. And a few farmers said, I did take a local guy that's willing, and we were really glad. We actually at one time encouraged them and said, listen, we can't see light at the end of the tunnel. Please hire every American that you can. Put them first for sure. Hire them, train them, even if it takes longer to get it done, but for sure get them. So that was, and then despite that, it did not materialize. As I said, when I asked the farmers, they said, you know, I got on that tractor myself and I just had to learn some skills that I've forgotten long ago and make it work, because there were nobody, all my American personnel that I still have with me on the farm just had to work double and extra much, and they were willing. Everybody was jumping out, which is what we always see, is that when you're in a bind, people will come to the forefront and take up the responsibility. As you say, they train, they skilled, they come from a farming background. They contribute tremendously to their farmers. We do surveys every year amongst our clients to ask them about it and see, and the very, very satisfied. The work skills or the work ethic of the South Africans are still fantastic. They committed. They have not, the other part is, which is a reality. What else will they do? And jobs are not based on skill in South Africa. So these guys are available. They're willing. They are desperate.
How many charters so far have come to the United States, and how many workers have they brought?
You know, the farmers in that survey, we asked them, and there was 2,600 people requested amongst the 430 farmers that completed the survey. But at the moment, most of ours are here, and most of all our other agencies that have been bringing them. Why one agent told me today is they still have 40 to come. So I would guess there must be between us about 200 or so that still need to come. At least 15% of all the clients canceled their workers because they were finding some solution on their own. And now that it's summer, they don't need them that much. There's always a lull in the summer, except for maybe maintenance work and so on, and then spray work, but not all of them are used. So there are some that said, okay, we'll come back in August. We'll ask them to come in August. So we're waiting to see what does that number look like. So far, 3 charter flights that we arranged came, each one with about 200 people in those. But there were about 8 other charter flights that took off from SAA, Emirates, and Turkish Air, and those were all full too. So we guess our assumption is, when we met as a group, and we actually met this morning again, that the majority is here now to work. That would come. So there could be still a few, as I say, I guesstimate about 200 to still come for the fall as such. But, you know, the cost stays an issue. And now the challenge is, as the time progresses, there's less people to fill these planes. So there's going to be a point where airline says, well, it's not cost effective anymore to put 10 people on our aeroplane. That usually takes 260. So, yeah.
Where can, you know, some of our producers who are interested in H2A labor, where can they find you and your company at?
We have a website, and people can visit that. It's usafarmlabor.com, and there they can see our name and phone numbers and talk to us and so on. Jared normally explains to them for about 40 minutes what the program entails. It is an involved program. There's hope that they will modify it in the future. There's some legislation that was developed and some ideas, 2 main streams of it, and there's definitely room to adjust this program. So H2A workers are for sure here to stay, I believe, to help, and we will not have crops if we don't have these people. As the world mechanizes, they will move more and more to semi-skilled and skilled labor, which is coincidentally what most South Africans bring to the table, where, you know, compared to other groups who maybe do a much more manual labor, but as cost increases, challenges increases, machines and people who run machines are going to be higher in demand. So, I think it's important that employers keep close to understand what the issues are, that they support and help. But I do know many a farmer spoke to the senator's offices, and that interaction is critical and really helps to have an ear on the ground, to understand the challenges that are there, to give their input and assist in making this program better.